because I was out in my tent. I heard him coming up. An owl caller stepped out and did the owl call. He made me think of Moses when he walked back in there. I'm Arla Colette Williams, and at the age of 6, I was at my grandmother's. I was sitting on the ground playing with some sticks and flowers and just stones and all kinds of things that I could gather together. It was something I did a lot. And that day I was sitting there intent on what I was doing, and I heard someone walk up. Well, I thought it was my grandmother. So I looked up, and it wasn't my grandmother. It was a young male, a juvenile Bigfoot. And he wasn't very far from me. He was actually standing in front of me. And we just stared at each other for a little while. And, the only reference in my mind, I'm sure, was that's a hairy kid. But we stared at each other for a little while, didn't say anything. He turned around and walked off, and I jumped up and I went in to tell my grandmother what I'd seen. And I asked her, I said, "What was that, Granny?" And all she said to me at that time was, "What do you think it was?" And so she let me think about this. And then when I had questions, she began to teach me about them because she knew about them. And the interesting thing about this is that's my first recollection of actually knowing, after I talked to my granny, that I had seen a Bigfoot. But my mom and I were talking just a few years ago, and she asked me if I remembered something that had happened when I was 3. And she began to go back over the story. She was in the closet getting the clothes for the next day, and my dad was taking a bath, and I was sitting on her bed uh, talking to something that was looking in the window. But I talked to everything, so that wasn't anything new. Well, Mom heard me talking, and so she came out of the closet and looked over towards the window and screamed for my dad. Arliss, Arliss talking to a dirty, hairy man. And boy, my dad came out of the bathroom, went through the kitchen, grabbed a butcher knife, and off he went out the door. Well, I told Mom, I said, "Mom, I remember that very well. I really remember Dad getting that butcher knife and heading out the door so fast." And she stopped, and then she said, "Do you think that was a Bigfoot?" And I said, "Well, Mom, what do you think?" And she said, "I saw a Bigfoot." I said, "Mom, I think you did." So my life didn't start because I saw something on TV or at the movies or anything else. It started from the young one that came up and started pretty much my life with the hairy people.
Hi, I'm Linda Eastburn of Linda Eastburn YouTube channel, and I have a new book out called Threshold to Encounters. It's about 40 years of research and experience with all of these wild cryptids that many of you I know have encountered yourself. You can find it on Amazon.com.
Wow, that is just amazing. That would just be a remarkable experience. Now, were you afraid of them, or did you just kind of befriend these?
Oh no, I didn't have any fear of anything in the woods. I was running off to the woods when I could walk and get out of the house. I would be gone. My grandmother never taught me to fear anything. She always impressed upon me that no matter what I saw, that I should be respectful and I should tell them who I am. And, she said that if there's respect between us, there'll be no problems. And I found that definitely to be through the years. But from the time I was little, I saw lots of things and did lots of things that made my mom cringe half the time. I was pretty hard for my mom.
The one that you saw when you were 6 years of age and you were just talking to him, can you describe what it looked like? You said it was a juvenile, it was a male, and was it communicating back with you or?
No, we didn't say anything to each other. He looked like a hairy boy, basically. I knew it was a boy, um, but that's exactly what, he looked like to me. Um, he wasn't like exactly human looking, but he was close enough that my mind at that time, uh, you know, was like hairy boy. So that, and pretty much his family, which I still have interaction with, are all like that.
And when you say that he looked like a hairy boy, was he not as hairy as most Bigfoot that we see images of?
Um, Probably not, but not all of them are hairy like that either. I've been from coast to coast and primitive camped and sometimes by myself and into British Columbia. And the encounters that I've seen through the years aren't all exactly alike as far as hair is considered or even facial features.
They have individual looks just like humans then.
Yes, very much so.
Well, describe what this one did look like. Can you describe, like the coloring, what the features look like?
He was a brownish kind of color. And actually, in my children's book, I have used him as an adult for the grandfather. Um, so he was a light brown. Um, I'm guessing he was a little taller than me from me sitting there, looking at him. He had very little hair at all on his face. And other than that, he was probably what people see, as Bigfoot. Um, at that age, I wasn't sizing him up for like that. I was just staring at him because, somewhere in me, I knew this was another kid. And I knew it was a boy. And he just was much hairier than a human boy would be.
Yeah, exactly. So you said that you've traveled all over, you've had several sightings. About how many encounters or sightings have you had with Bigfoot over your lifetime?
Oh my gosh, I couldn't even begin to say that because I have almost 70 years of knowing about them. And I never counted. Oh, I've had 5 sightings, I've had 10, I've had 20, whatever. It's just never been in me to count how many sightings I've had over the years.
Which ones would you say have impacted you the most? Where were you? What happened? How did you have the sighting? Just describe one to me.
Well, here at my home, Indigo, who is a young male now, um, had such an impact on me because it was day to day interaction and has been for many, many years. He's in his early 20s now. And he walked in the woods with us as we would walk. He would always walk off the side of the road into the tree line when my dog and I, Watto, who was a 130-pound bull mastiff, would walk, and we walked every day. He was usually around and even, did silly stuff like one day we were walking and Watto kept looking off over to the right. And I looked and I didn't see anything over there, but she just kept looking over there and putting her attention there. And I knew Indigo was off to the left. Well, I just stopped looking off to the right, turned back around, was going to continue to walk. And I glanced over, to the left, and here came a rock and got her right at the base of her tail. It didn't hurt her. It just got her attention. She jumped, turned around, looked at him, started wagging her tail, and off we went again. So as far as a day-to-day thing impacting me, he has. And, I'm not a researcher and I'm not a habituator at all. If anybody's been changed by an association, it's me that's been changed and not them.
Well, in what way would you say you have been changed?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've always been open to other things all my life, but just the caring that they show and the respect that they show, there is just a total change in a person when they have that close of an interaction with them. And my grandmother would say they're like us in ways and they are not like us in ways, and that's for sure. I mean, Indigo, 1 month. Through a month, we had I guess I had a learning. I had put out a glyph, and on my rock that I used, which humans do not go there. It's not easy to get there to begin with, and there wouldn't be any reason for humans to be right there. And it was so that an animal wouldn't step over it and change it. But going through that with him, having an animal do that, just in my mind couldn't happen. And what happened was, as the month progressed, either each day or maybe every other day, he would move. He put a glyph there as well, and he would move a part of that glyph. And sometimes it was very, very subtle. Now, what I did was each time I went, I took a photo. And so I had that photo to put with what I saw the next time I went. So I kept those photos, and each time that would change in a particular way. And I never knew what it was going to be. It was a lot of fun for me to know that we're doing this. And in the beginning, I just thought, well, this is kind of fun, that we're doing this. But I began to see as we went through it that the subtlety of what he was doing helped me to be even more aware of the subtleties of what happens with them, of what happens in life, of what happens in the woods. We miss so many beautiful things because they aren't in your face. And that was wonderful for me to work with that, to begin to look even more for the things that are just so wonderful in our life and might not be in our face.
You said your grandmother said, that they were like us in many ways and not like us in many ways. Do you know what she was specifically referring to?
Well, they think different than we do, but they know exactly how we think. And that's been proven so many times, and not just with me, but with many, many people. And, this respect thing that she talked about too, um, even though they have different ways than we do, um, we're still to respect. And so that was even a multi-layered teaching of, just because something's not just like us or doesn't think just like us or doesn't look just like us, that doesn't mean that we're supposed to be disrespectful.
So you learned that over time from your grandmother as well as interaction with them.
Oh, yes, very, very much so. And it's interesting because they teach us pretty much in the same way as my grandmother did. And that's with doing something and then letting me think about it. And that my grandmother very much so, just like, when I went in and told her what I had seen, um, she said, "What do you think it was?" And so she wasn't going to put in my head in the beginning what it was I saw. She wanted me to think back about it and to go through that encounter again and to look at all the aspects of it. And they're very much like that as well.
The area where you live, obviously they're still there. They're still inhabit a lot of this area. Describe the land, the landscape, kind of where do they live? What is their terrain there?
Oh, this terrain. The place where I live is one of the highest points around here. It's not the highest, but it is up. And we're not talking about mountains, huge mountains or anything. But on one side of the land that I own and the several hundreds, if not thousands of acres around me, um, is very rocky, and it goes down into a creek. So you've got a ridge on one side that's very rocky with, big boulders and things. And then you've got a creek. And as soon as it hits the creek, that goes back up. And so you have another ridge. There's a lot of water around here as well. We have pine trees, and we also have hardwoods that are here. It's very, very dense here as well, the foliage and bushes and things. So it's really hard to even look into that and see anything regardless of, what you're looking for.
Are there structures or places that you see that they stay or dwell more?
Uh, they don't build structures to stay in. That's one thing I've seen for years and years. And one of the things we humans do, we anthropomorphize everything. We try to make something into something that we think it is. And science does that too. When they begin to look at something, well, we have this theory that this is what this is. And then, of course, science then goes about trying to prove their theory. One of the things that Kashima had said to me many years ago was, do not put your thoughts as a human onto how we should be. And that's basically what anthropomorphizing is. But that's the way we think. And I'm not saying people shouldn't, go out and try to figure out, why is this structure here? Or why did they do this? Those are the questions that people ask themselves to try to understand, what's going on. They do very little structures in this area. They just don't. Now I've videoed and seen several through the years, but there's a lot of other places where you see that happen a whole lot more.
How about vocalizations? Do you hear any noises or sounds or communications coming from them?
Yes, I used to record a lot, and I haven't in a long time. I just don't do it now. I did it a long time ago because I loved hearing back what was going on. And I've got audio that I've posted. I've had spectrograms done on my audio. So yeah, I hear a lot. I spoke at a conference this past weekend, and I brought public an audio that I had done in 2011 that I don't think I've ever shared it publicly. It's been privately shared. And it's actually of them speaking English. And there was a spectrogram done on it, and it fell within the range that they have assessed to the Bigfoot.
Did you understand what they were saying?
When they were speaking English, I
Yes.
did. Yeah, that you can understand it.
Well, what were they talking about? What did they say?
Well, they were coming up towards the house, and I even know who was on there. So I'll give you a little before information. In July of 2011, I was sitting out in the woods. There was a young male Bigfoot here, and he would come through the woods, never being quiet. He was like a bulldozer coming through. And that particular day, I was sitting out there, and I heard him coming, and I thought, I'm just going to ask him who he is. So I just said out loud, who are you? And he said through mind speak back to me, Rujasna. And I said it again, Rujasna. And then he said again, Rujasna. Well, I wasn't recording at that point, and anyway, it was mind speak, so it wouldn't have made any difference. But I got my phone and I recorded on it. He said his name was Rujasna. Now, this particular one, I've got trackways of him, of his footprints. I've seen him many times. He is actually in an audio that I have that had a spectrogram done on it. And I call it the Hi Guys audio because I was out in my tent. I heard him coming up, and I just said out like I normally do, Hi Guys. And he gave me back this silly howl that sounded like he was saying hello. And I laughed at him. And of course, the spectrogram showed that that was in the range that they have assessed to Bigfoot. So I'm already personally interacting with him.
So was that
But
the only English word that he said was hello?
oh no, that's just a pre thing to let you know about the name Rujusna. So I have this name that I was given in November. I just went blank. It was October, I think October maybe of that year. I had been audioing, and I got my recorder. I brought it in the house. I got my coffee. I sat down in my recliner and started listening to what I'd recorded overnight. And about 8 minutes in, I hear one say, Rujusna. And I jumped up out of the chair and I was like, I know that name, Rujusna. And there are other things that are on that audio. There is the typical knock sounds like that a lot of people get in their recording. But at one point, Al Caller, who said Rujusna, says, go slowly. Now, why would he say go slowly? Well, I don't think Rujusna ever went anywhere slowly. And then on into it, he says, we're going. Now, when I had the spectrogram done on that, there are other instances where Al Caller has been recorded. And I don't know if you've seen the story of Richard Taylor, where he was with me and he got to see the family and Al Caller actually do the Al Call. But his voice analysis, it was like, yep, that's Al Caller, which I knew that anyway. So people say, oh, they can't speak English. Yes, they can. I've listened to too many people tell me that they've heard native languages being spoken. Of course, you've got the samurai chatter uh, from Sierra Sounds and many other things. So, yes, they can speak whatever language they choose to speak. I mean, they've watched us forever.
Well, that's interesting. I don't know that I have heard that before, that hearing them actually speak in English, the English language. So that's extremely interesting. Now, what region of the country are you in where all this is happening?
I'm actually in Oklahoma.
And that's where a lot of Richard's had his experience, as well as Texas, I believe, isn't it?
Yes,
Richard Taylor.
Richard. Yes, he is actually from Texas, and he was here. He wasn't here to see the Bigfoot. Well, he was, but I wasn't having a gathering for people to see the Bigfoot. Number one, I'm not in charge of that. They choose what it is they do. I had a native friend from Washington who was coming to teach a drum workshop and to teach some of her ways. And that happened there. I had met Richard prior and had, I think, camped with him, talked to him, and he had said that he wanted to come to the drum making workshop, but he really didn't want to make a drum. He just wanted to kind of hang out. Well, he did come and hang out and had something happen that I never, ever thought would happen. But there again, I'm not in charge of what they do. That's strictly their choice.
Well, tell me about what happened.
Well, he had, walked around and I mean, you can take pictures here. I love the woods here, and it's beautiful, and it's not my place to tell the Bigfoot that they shouldn't be in pictures. I'm not going to do that. I even, when I'm out in the woods taking pictures, and I take pictures of everything, I always just tell them, hey, I'm taking photos. Now they know what I'm talking about, and I don't have to do that. They know that about me, but it is that measure of respect that I would for anybody. If I was wanted to take a picture, or was just taking a picture of some scenery and somebody that I didn't know was standing there, I would say to them, I'm going to take a picture, and it's probably going to go on Facebook, so I'm going to give them the opportunity as well to do, what they choose to do. But we had a fire after we had made the drums, and we had a little prayer ceremony around the fire. I had some friends who they had flutes, and they played the flute, and we had different things. Different people were there and had different beliefs and ways, and they were very welcome to bring those. There were 18 people here. We were all sitting around the fire, um, and it just so happened that later I came across Richard. I'd got up and walked away from the fire, and I came across Richard, and so we ended up down in the woods. And I had told him at one point, I don't know if anything will happen. I don't know. I'm not in charge of that. But we walked off into the woods, and I've done that many times through the years. No matter where I've been camped, it's just my nature to get up from the fire and go walk down a road, into the woods, whatever, in the dark. But anyway, he went, and we were standing there, and the family started coming up, and we had the young ones were up closer to us. And people say, oh, they're not going to let the young ones get close to you. Well, that was not true in this case. And then he there was one, which was Rejesna, who stepped out into the trail that he could see. Now, this night had enough moonlight, and there wasn't full foliage on the trees, so you could see through the trees. And then Owl Caller stepped out and did the owl call. And people say they mimic them. No, they don't mimic them. They speak with the animals, and speak the language of the animals and the birds, and pretty much of even us. And he was just stunned after this. It was interesting because when we walked back up to the fire, one of my girlfriends had said, he made me think of Moses. When he walked back in there, he was just illuminated. So did they affect his aura? Yes, I believe that they very did. He felt total acceptance. He felt love. He said to me, I'll never be afraid again. And he still continues on. He loves what he does. Yes, he uses flares and other things, but they're, like I said, they're in charge. If they don't want you to see them, you won't see them.
Well, that's really interesting that, that he had that experience. I think that would just really would change a person.
Yeah, it really did. And the interesting thing about that recording, I never thought I would hear it. I had told him no pictures, and I think they basically let him know that too. So he didn't have his camera on, but they don't seem to mind at all if you record them. They will drain your batteries and do other things to your equipment. There's hundreds of people who will, talk about that. But, he just continues on. And when I get to see him and we go back to that story, he just lights up, and you just feel this awesome feeling around him. And it's helped other people who have had experiences and things to maybe try to understand. They use the alcohol a lot, and they can get very close to you using the alcohol. And, because we accept that the owls are out there, but it's definitely a way of getting our attention. And, if you're recording and you want to know for certain if that was an owl or them, just do a spectrogram on it and it's going to tell you that.
What do you think they are?
They're an ancient people. I believe that they were always here before us, when the earth was where it could be lived on. They came from the stars. Some of them have mixed with humans. I don't believe all of them have, um, through the years. So they're like star people, like so many that we're seeing now. All of what they used to call UFOs and UAPs, they come from another planet or star system. And I believe that the Bigfoot people do as well.
Have you seen any craft or UFOs in the area where the Bigfoot are?
Oh, yeah. I've seen fairies. I've seen little people. I've seen dogmen. I've seen a lot of what people call cryptids. And I have people ask me all the time, well, do you think that Bigfoot and aliens are connected? I do. I believe we're all connected, but humans have walked away from so much in their learning, being a human, that we've missed and become disconnected for various reasons. They're
Some-
all still a part of this whole universe. So it's not because there's something that's going on that's just them. It's because they all accept each other.
Describe some of the UFO craft that you've visualized there.
Okay. I've seen some that are triangle shapes. I've seen some that are more like the log or kind of shape. One I saw several years ago. I have a big garden, and we have a lot of predators around here that like to get in my garden. And so I sleep in my garden, in my tent, while produce and things are growing that animals are going to get. And that particular night, it was such a beautiful night. And I was laying with my head stuck out the door of the tent, just looking up at the sky. And I saw a light off to the east, is actually the direction it was. And it was long, and there were several lights along the length of that. It was very low and no sound whatsoever. and it was getting very close. So I stuck my head inside to get my camera. And when I put my head back outside, it was gone. And I never heard anything coming from it. And you basically don't hear uh, much if they're close. Now, sometimes you will, but I think probably most of the times you're not going to hear things. I've watched them with several people and watched them in the sky, multiples of them doing different things. And I've watched them open the triangular, it's like a portal. And you will see three make this triangle. And then you will see others around. So they're here. They've always been here too. Um, and I was taught these are relatives. We don't fear them. Um, we try to understand, what's going on here.
So have you ever seen one actually land or be on the ground?
No, I don't think I've ever seen one on the ground, but I have been in them. One of them that I went in or was taken up in, it was interesting. There were levels, and the first level was like a big open room. There were chairs and couches just spread around. And then when I went up to the next level, it was like you were in some kind of clinic or hospital type area. And I went up one more level and I could actually see out that level at all the different things that were around.
Do you remember how you got on the craft?
I just remember being there and knowing the craft was above me, and then there was a change in how my body felt, and then I was just like pulled up and into the craft, and not pulled up necessarily with a hard force, but just like just going up.
I've heard that described before. I think one person described it as it was like they were wrapped up in like a bubble wrap tight and then just like sucked up whatever. And
Yeah, like a
um,
tube or
yeah, kind of like a tumbling feeling almost, but but ended up in the craft. So do you see have lights coming in your home or anything like that before before they take you?
when I've been in a ship, I've not been in, of course, my house. I've been out, doing things. There are portals around here. We joke and say there's a portal in my kitchen because my dogs uh, several times have not been in the house, and neither one of us let them in, and they would come walking out of the kitchen. And it works in reverse too with them. But there is a portal that is in the woods. It's not open all the time. Um, but I've seen portals all over in many, many different places across the United States and into British Columbia. A portal is where the energy opens. And so that can happen anywhere, actually.
And when you say energy opens, exactly what energy are we talking about and how do you see it open?
Well, for a portal to open, the vibrations of that space change. So it's It's kind of like if you are there when it opens, you will feel it. And I've heard people say that a lot. And even some who really didn't know what they were looking at the moment, they felt it. And a lot of them uh, don't understand. And so it's really freaky for them for that to happen.
And that's because of the way they're feeling.
Well, you've got the actual physical change of what's around you to what's going on in your mind. I mean, you can do a lot of things to your body with your mind, depending on what you believe. And we've been taught to fear, humans have all their life, of something that they don't understand. And that was the thing I was taught growing up, that you don't fear something just because you don't understand what it is. So my nature is to find out what this is, what's going on. I'm that little kid that would be laying on her bed and hear something or feel something going on underneath my bed. Well, I would lean over the edge of my bed and look under there to see what was going on. I didn't cover my head up or, holler for my mom or anything like that. I wanted to know what was going on.
Did you ever see the Bigfoot and the craft together? And did you ever see the Bigfoot going up into the craft or anything like that?
Oh, yeah, I've seen them on crafts many times. Um, it's just it's no different for me than them bringing a human into the craft or whatever that they're bringing into the craft. I have seen, some of the star people on the craft just walking around doing things, and there would also be the Bigfoot there as well.
Do you know what their relationship is? Why the Bigfoot would be there?
One of the things that I was always taught about the Bigfoot people is that they're trying to help us. They're trying to reach us to help us see what it is that we're doing to this planet. And I've told people for years, and especially people that I've worked with, that if you purpose to know about the Bigfoot people and you open your heart and your mind, shift your paradigm in this, and if you are willing to go there and see the things that you need to see, mostly about yourself, because that's just like with the teaching from Indigo of the subtlety of things that we don't see. That one of the things that happens in the quest to learn about Bigfoot is you learn more about who you are. And that is one of the things that they want us to do. They want to help us remember, who we are and how we are to everything, not just the earth, but, to each other as well. All of the understanding of the Star Nation people I have is that they are helping. And I'm seeing more and more people talk about that now. Yes, they're very interested in how we are evolving physically, mentally, spiritually, and they want to help as well. There are so many that are here now, and many are in human form, working to do these things.
Well, that's interesting. You mentioned seeing other cryptid types. Tell me about the little people. Where did you see these? When did you see these? And is it ongoing? Do you continue to see the little people?
They're a part of my life. I've seen them since I was little. And they're, they vary. Primarily, they're around 2 feet tall, and I've interacted with them as well. They're good teachers. They have their own ways, and it's about respect as well. You can look at native stories of the little people, and it's always interesting to me that I see so much of the same thing being taught to us, by little people, the Bigfoot people, and others. I mean, Dogman, oh my gosh, he hits our fear. I mean, people immediately, when they see Dogman, they're in fear of this. But we've been conditioned to believe. I mean, one of the stories that we heard as kids was Little Red Riding Hood, and it was all about fear. And so those are the things that, if we can get past that fear, the world opens in such a wondrous way. One thing I will say about the Dogmen, their energy is even stronger than what the Bigfoot people have. It's what I call gut energy. It hits you in the gut, and that fight or flight mode will just totally kick in for people who, fear them because they don't understand, what their nature is. And that's the same thing with the Bigfoot people, is if you don't understand their nature, then something that you might think is aggressive is really not aggressive at all. It is just their way. Yes, they're big, they're hairy, and they are loud. And, that messes with you if you don't understand their nature. I have a quick story that I tell to kind of show that. I was camping down in the Comishes with a group of people, and as I do, we were sitting around the fire. It was about midnight. I decided I was going to get up and take a walk. Well, I started down this little one-lane road, and this young man jumped up and he said, "Miss Arla, can I go with you?" And I said, "Well, sure, come on." Well, this young man during the day had told me he didn't know what they were, and he didn't know if, they would eat you or kill you or hurt you or whatever. And he was wanting to try to get some kind of understanding and get past that. So he already had said what he believed. Well, we're off down the road and we hear heavy bipedal walking coming up just inside the tree line. And it gets closer and closer and closer, and it stops, and I stop. And it's right behind some cedar trees, and it's hard to see into the tree line at that point. And he grabs a hold of my arm and he says, "Are you afraid?" And I said, "No, I'm not afraid." I said, "Are you afraid?" And he grabbed me with his other arm and he said, "Yes." He said, "I don't know what they're trying to do to me." And so I tried to talk to him and get him to calm down. He could not. So I just said, "Let's go back to the camp." And we did. He had already said during the day he didn't know what they were, if they would eat him, if they would kill somebody, or whatever. So his experience was based on what he thought about them. If you took two reports on that, mine would be got up, walked down the road, heard, heavy bipedal walking. It stopped right inside the tree line. His would be, it was trying to hurt him. So the actual same thing happened to both people, but he took it as this was something really bad, and it was just something that they do for me.
So you have written some books. Tell me about those.
Okay. My Life with the Hairy People chronicles my life, the beginning with them through several years. It also has some stories of the little people that are in there. And it also has some drawings that children did of Bigfoot. It's got a few other stories from other people, but primarily it's about me and how I started at 6 years old, and then how I came to be talking about them. I never thought I would ever talk about them. We didn't talk about them in public. We talked to each other about them, but we didn't really talk about them. You know, you would have somebody in the area say, "Oh my gosh, we heard a woolly bugger," and that's what they called them at that time. And we didn't get into anything. We just let them, say what they were saying. So I came into this world of the Bigfoot research world. I'm not a researcher, as I said, but I was introduced to it. I didn't know at the time that there was anything like that. I thought the guys were teasing me and trying to tell me that, yeah, there were people out there trying to prove that they exist. But I came into it, and in the book, it talks about that as well.
What's the name of the book?
It's My Life with the Hairy People.
My Life with the Hairy.
And
Do you have a copy of it you can show us?
I do.
Yeah, just hold it up. We'll take a look at the cover of it.
There
Very
you
good.
go.
Nice cover. Pretty.
Yep,
Okay,
thank
well,
you.
and where can someone buy that?
They can get it on Amazon, or they can get it on me on Facebook. I have a page, Naturally Arla. And this is my children's book, Respect in the Water.
Yes, that's nice as well.
And
Keep
it's
you
got
busy.
awesome art in it by Thomas Finley. Um, and you can get that on Amazon as well, or you can get them from me. And if you want me to sign them, I can do that as well.
Well, I thank you today for being with me. You've had a remarkable lifelong experience with Bigfoot, something a little different than a lot of other people have. So I appreciate your perspective and sharing it so elegantly with me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. I'm going to go ahead and end our session today, and I'll let you know when this comes out.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.